Help support Name Explained by leaving a like and a comment, sharing this video, and by subscribing to the channel. There are so many cities on our planet named after real people, so to make this video somewhat more manageable, I've decided to focus solely on country capital cities. You know a country's capital city, right? They tend to be the biggest and most populated settlement in the country, and usually contain things like government buildings and tacky tourist attractions. I checked literally every country's capital city and looked to see if it was named after a person or not, and from my research I found out that 33 countries have capital cities named after actual people. That might not sound like all too many at first, but as there are only around 200 countries, and I say around 200 as there's debate over some countries and if they're really countries or not, it means that around 15% of all capital cities are named after people. Okay, so 15% still doesn't sound that impressive, but I think that's pretty cool. But before we dive into these, I need to mention a couple ground rules in regards to my criteria for a city to appear on this list or not. First off, the country the capital comes from has to definitively be a country. This means the capital of Bermuda, Hamilton, named after Governor Henry Hamilton, isn't on this list, as Bermuda is a British overseas territory, as opposed to a fully independent country. Secondly, we are only factoring in capital cities that are definitely named after people with no questions asked. Some cities might be named after people, but we aren't entirely sure. For example, there's a theory that London is named after an ancient king called King Lud, but we're not too sure about that one. Likewise, Lisbon might apparently be named after Ulysses. Like I said, I just want capital cities named after real people with no debate around it. And also, when I say real people, there's a chance that some of these people might not be real, as there's a few cities who are named after more mythical or legendary figures. But these people are real enough, so who cares? Also, as we have 33 cities to look into, this is going to be a quick look at each of them. We're simply going to highlight the country, the capital, who it's named after, who exactly they are, and why it's named after them. Okay, after all that rambling, we can actually begin. Let's properly kick things off with the Bahamas in their capital of Nassau. This capital is named after King William III of England, who was from the House of Nassau. The Bahamas was once part of the British Empire, hence why it's named after him. Heads up, there's going to be a few more places that aren't British anymore, but still named after British kings or queens or other various British people like dukes and so on. Bolivia's capital of Sucre is named after Antonio Jose de Sucre, a celebrated former president of the country. Botswana's Gaborone is named after Chief Gossi Gaborone, who was a tribal king in the land in the late 19th century. The tiny nation of Brunei has a capital with the name of Bandar Seri Begawan. This city's name comes from their former sultan of Omar Ali Saifuddin III. These two names aren't the same at all, but it makes more sense when you find out that after he abdicated the throne, he took the title of Seri Begawan, which is more in tune with the capital's name. Cambodia's Phnom Phem's etymology has its name being linked with Lady Phien, a legendary figure who supposedly founded the city. Chile's capital is Santiago, which is a Spanish translation of St. James. Like with British kings and queens, there's going to be a few more Christian saints in this video, primarily in Latin America. The Republic of Congo's Brazzaville is named after French-Italian explorer Pierre Savorgnan de Blaza, who played a large role in uncovering this part of the world for Europeans. Sometimes this country is referred to as Congo-Brazzaville to help differentiate it with the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So this guy is kind of the namesake of the country too. Costa Rica's San Jose is of course named after St. Joseph. The Dominican Republic's Santo Domingo is named after St. Dominic, and El Salvador's San Salvador is named after the Savior, aka Jesus Christ. Like I said, those Latin Americans sure love naming places after bigwigs from Christianity. Over in Africa, we have Equatorial Guinea and their capital of Malabo. This name comes from Malabo Lopela Melaka, who was a former king of Boyko Island. This is the island that the city is located on, and it makes Equatorial Guinea one of the few countries to have its capital city not on the nation's mainland. According to a Reddit post, the other three countries are Denmark, the Gambia, and the UAE, so that's pretty neat. But Equatorial Guinea is actually building a new city on their mainland to be their new capital, so never mind. Eswatini is a nation with two capitals, with one of those capitals being called Umbambe. This one is named after Chief Umbambe Kwene, a local ruler the British came across when they explored this land. Greece's capital of Athens is of course named after the ancient Greek goddess of Athena, who is seen as a patron of the ancient city. And then we have Italy's capital of Rome, named after Romulus, the legendary figure who not only founded the city but the whole Roman Empire. It's neat that these two countries are next to each other alphabetically on this list, are both named after legendary figures, and they're both nations deeply linked with ancient Europe. Jamaica's Kingston could be named after kings in general, but that isn't actually the case. It is instead named after King William III of England, yeah, the same one who named Nassau in the Bahamas. It is once again named after him because of British ties to this land. William III is the only person to appear multiple times on this list, making him the only person to have more than one nation's capital city named after him. Over in Central Asia, we have Kyrgyzstan and their capital of Bishkek. This city is most likely named after Bishkek Batyr, an 18th century army commander, but apparently there's a folk etymology that has this city being named after a young boy named Bishkek, which is also the name of a kind of paddle used to churn milk. The legend goes that his mother lost her paddle just before giving birth to him, and then he grew up to found this city. This is probably the most dubious entry on this list, but it's worth mentioning. Monrovia is the capital of Liberia, the African nation with deep ties to the USA we've covered in a previous video. The capital's name is linked with the USA too, as it's named after former President James Monroe, who was a supporter of the formation of Liberia. Malaysia kind of has two capitals, with those being Kuala Lumpur and Putrajaya. The latter of these is named after their first Prime Minister, Tunuk Abdul Rahman Putra Al-Haj. It's easy to understand why someone would name a city after their first leader. Then we have Malta's Valletta, named after Frenchman Jean Parazot de Valette, a commander who fended off an Ottoman Empire siege of the island. The city was named in his honor. Port Louis in Mauritius is named after French King Louis XV, and obviously it's a port too. Another case of a name relating to a foreign power that once ruled this land. Mongolia's Ulaanbaatar is named after someone called Damdin Sukbatar, a key figure in Mongolia's revolution. Then in Mozambique we have the capital of Maputo, named after another local chief from the land called Mapuptu. We jump now to the very bottom of the globe with New Zealand. Their capital is named Wellington, and named after Arthur Wellesley. This doesn't make all that much sense at first, but it becomes a lot more clear when you realise he was also the first Duke of Wellington. Relatively close to New Zealand is Papua New Guinea. The capital of this nation is called Port Moresby. This name comes from Admiral Sir Fairfax Moresby, a British naval officer who was stationed in this part of the world. Bucharest in Romania probably shouldn't be on this list, because it kind of fits the same bill as London, where we aren't entirely sure where the name came from, but it might relate to a legendary figure. But I like the story so much I want to share it. Yeah, I'm breaking my own rules. Let me know how much that annoys you down in the comments and get me some sweet engagement. The city is supposedly named after the figure of Bukur, who has been described as either an outlaw, prince, fisherman or shepherd. He was a dude with many talents clearly. The story goes he built a church here and the city spawned around it. It's all a bit up in the air, but I just love the idea of a city being named after a shepherd as opposed to a king or something. St. Lucia is the only country definitely named after a real woman. Ireland is named after a female goddess, so it doesn't count in case you're wondering. Its capital of Castellet, however, is named after a man. The name comes from Charles Eugène Gabriel de la Cour Maclay de Castellet. I had to say that full name and butcher it entirely because it's the final word that links to this city's name. He was a French politician, which ties into the fact that the French were the first Europeans to settle on the island. The Seychelles are another island nation and their capital is called Victoria, named of course after Queen Victoria, due to British ties in the land. This is the only example of a capital city being named after a real woman, as the other cases like Athens and Phnom Penh are named after women from mythology and legends. We know for sure Queen Victoria was a real person. Slovakia's Bratislava comes from the Duke of Lower Pannonia named Bratislav. This is just another case of someone in a hereditary position getting a city named after them. South Africa famously has 3 capital cities, but only one named after a person, that being Pretoria, which is named after Andreas Pretorius, a Boer leader who helped in the creation of modern South Africa. Turkmenistan's Ashgabat has a name meaning city of love, but there are theories that the name derives from Alasiak I of Parthia. This is hypothesized, so maybe shouldn't be on this list, but this king was around in the 3rd century BC, and if this is the case, this means that Ashgabat is the capital named after a real person from the furthest back in history. Well, minus legendary figures, I suppose. Speaking of legendary figures, Ukraine's capital of Kyiv is named after the figure of Kiev, who supposedly founded the city along with his siblings. Washington is a name slapped all across the United States of America as an ode to their first president, and the name can of course be seen as the name of the capital, Washington DC. And finally we have Zambia's capital of Lusaka, which is named after an old tribal chief named Lusaka. And from my research, plus factoring my own criteria, that is every capital city on the planet named after a person, whether they be real or a tad more legendary. And if you think I missed out Bulgaria's Sofia, hear me out. Yes, that is a person name. And yes, the city is named after the Saint Sophia Church within the city. And yes, there is a Saint Sophia. But this doesn't seem to relate to her and might instead relate to the Greek word for wisdom. And also, on the chance that anyone Manx is watching, the Isle of Man's capital of Douglas isn't named after someone with that name. It simply means Black River, and it's just a coincidence that it sounds exactly like the name of Douglas. Minus the Isle of Man and Bulgaria, if there's anywhere I missed out on, please feel free to let me know. And apologies about my pronunciation in this video. I've had to say names from across the entire planet for this one, so maybe cut me some slack. Or don't, whichever's easiest for you really. This video topic was suggested by Steven Nikolov over on my Patreon. Every Wednesday I put up a video request post over on my Patreon for my awesome patrons to leave video ideas on. I then pick one of those ideas to be turned into a video the following Wednesday. So if you have a great idea for a Name Explain video and wish to enjoy Name Explain videos ad-free as well as get exclusive content and your name at the end of these videos, then why not support the channel on Patreon? It takes just $1 a month to help the channel in a huge way and get you all of these amazing benefits. Visit patreon.com/nameexplain or click the link down below. Name Explain depends on viewers like yourself supporting the channel financially on Patreon, so a huge thank you to everyone who does. Donating just $1 a month helps the channel amazingly and gets you bonuses including ad-free videos, exclusive content, the power to request ideas to be made into actual Name Explain videos, and your name at the end of the video with all these awesome people. Visit patreon.com/nameexplain or click the link down below to find out how you too can support the channel. Thank you. Thanks for reaching the end of the video. Why not watch another and subscribe to keep up to date on all things Name Explain. You can find myself on Instagram where I'm NameExplainYT and join the Facebook group Friends of Name Explain to talk with myself and other name nerds. All that will be linked down below. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and once again, thank you all so much.